friendship that'll never ever end.
It's the moment that's kept us talking all weekend long. The Fiend, Bray Wyatt, showed up at the very end of Smackdown this week and hit Alexa Bliss with the mandible claw. This was such a cool segment. The way that the Fiend moved his hands so slowly and Alexa was sat there frozen in fear was so well done. The acting was perfect. The camera shots were perfect. The sound effects were perfect. I loved it. Now, this video from WWE went trending on YouTube. This thing got people's attention in a heartbeat. And I wanted to dive really deep into the theory of this. So the video is much longer than normal, but I promise you it's worth it. We're going to hopefully maybe even solve things about Bray Wyatt and the Fiend during this video. So if you are new to the channel, hit the subscribe button. And of course, like the video as well. It's completely free to do, so please feel free to do it. Now, the big question everyone is asking is Alexa Bliss now a part of Bray Wyatt's wacky Firefly Funhouse? Now, I am a huge advocate for people joining Bray Wyatt, whether they play the puppet roles or whether they're just Bray Wyatt's friends. I think that could work. The Fiend running a faction would be pretty awesome. However, I don't think Alexa Bliss is joining Bray in the Firefly Funhouse. There is a lot more to dive into, which we could potentially see Alexa Bliss in the Funhouse, but I don't think she's going to be joining Bray. And although I think it would be cool, I don't think it's the right time. I think there was a reason he attacked Alexa Bliss, and that's the key word here. He attacked Alexa Bliss. He didn't help Alexa Bliss up. He didn't save her. He literally went to that ring and hit her with a mandible claw. He went in there and hurt her. Using the hurt glove as well, he ripped at her mouth. Now, we did see at Extreme Rules Alexa Bliss playing Sister Abigail, but I think it's actually the other way around. I think what we saw was the spirit of Abigail bring the incarnation of Alexa Bliss, meaning Abby was Alexa, not the other way round. And I think that's a key point. I feel like it was a mind game from Bray Wyatt. I think Bray used Alexa to lure Braun Strowman in, and we saw Braun walk towards Alexa, and we saw Bray Wyatt jump and attack, and we never saw Alexa again. 2 weeks have passed since Extreme Rules, and that is not what Alexa Bliss has looked like on SmackDown. So if she was Abigail, surely she would still be Abigail. It doesn't make sense to portray her in that role when she hasn't been in that role. I think Bray knows that that's Alexa's friend. Now, we also have the doll from the Firefly Funhouse. A lot of people have sent me this, and although I'd love to say it's going to be Bliss, I don't think so. I think it's possible that Bliss has an inner Fiend, and I think it's very possible that we get to see something come from this, but I think the doll was explained. It was a little doll with a Fiend mask on that was used to torment The Miz in way of it was playing with his children. His children were playing with a doll. Bray Wyatt literally said on the Funhouse that it was his friend, and The Miz's kid had basically made a new friend, and that's what that doll represented. We actually know what the doll means. Now, a key thing about doing a theory video is you have to look at the facts. And the facts were, last night on SmackDown, Bray Wyatt appeared at the very start of the show in a Firefly Funhouse episode and told us that he wanted something Braun Strowman had. We then saw a picture of Braun Strowman with the Universal Championship in his hands. Now, other people may be willing to dismiss that and say that's not relevant, but to me, that is relevant. It happened. You can't deny it. So we know from that what the Fiend now wants, and that is the Universal Championship. If he would have come on TV and said, I want a friend to join me in the Firefly Funhouse, then yeah, I'd completely agree with the whole Alexa is Abby, Alexa / is in the Funhouse thing. But we know what the puppets now represent. We know Ramblin' Rabbit represents the critics of Bray Wyatt. They never shut up, hence Ramblin' Rabbit never shuts up and always wants to expose the secrets. You have Huskus the Pig Boy, which is obviously a representation of Bray Wyatt's alter ego from many years ago, Husky Harris. Of course, there's Mercy the Buzzard, which is a representation of a man who helped Bray Wyatt hone the character of Bray Wyatt. Waylon Mercy, and of course, Abby the Witch, we all know, is a representation of Sister Abigail, a parent-like figure who helped Bray Wyatt grow up and taught him everything he knows. And then, of course, the bus puppet in Vince McMahon, which is called the bus, I think because Vince doesn't want to be associated with it, and because Bray fears the bus. And my problem with someone playing the puppets now is the fact that it's been over a year and we haven't seen that manifestation by the Funhouse puppets. So I think it would be a bit weird to start seeing it now, and who plays the other puppets? It would lead you down a wormhole I'm not sure WWE really want to go down. But I do think more is at play here. And when you actually look at what the Fiend actually did to Alexa, he hit her with a mandible claw. Something we know the Fiend has done many, many times before. Now, maybe right here is the connection we need to be looking at. So let's do it. Seth Rollins, a former opponent of the Fiend, he had his whole burn it down gimmick. He was kind of liked by the fans. He was quite established superstar, I would say. He obviously got mandible clawed, but multiple times by Bray Wyatt. Now he is the Messiah, Seth Rollins. And literally a weird gimmick where he preaches that he's doing things for the greater good, but it's a heel gimmick. And he's basically ripping people's eyeballs out. And he's claiming, for whatever reason, he's doing it as a sacrifice for the greater good. Daniel Bryan was the eco warrior. He literally had a championship that was recyclable. Like, he literally took it to a whole new level until he met the Fiend. And then the Fiend ripped away at the mouth of Daniel Bryan, and now we have this very focused, very high intensity, very good wrestler Daniel Bryan back once again. And it's almost like he's gone back to that underdog kind of role. He's not a heel, he does buck the trend, but I think the fact they had one extra match may be the reason. Now, Finn Balor as well, he seemed quite content on the WWE roster. He did win the Universal title, but he never really amounted to too much until he got mandible clawed by the Fiend. And then once he got clawed, he returned to NXT with his Prince gimmick, a flashback to his days in New Japan. And of course, he's been high intensity, high impact, very, very focused and determined Finn Balor ever since. So maybe right here is a connection we need to be looking at. Maybe the mandible claw reaches into someone and the Fiend looks up as he searches inside them for whatever it is that Bray Wyatt always says he can see inside of somebody. And he rips and he rips and he rips until he can pull whatever dark, weird, demonic entity is hidden within that person. Remember, Bray always says on the Funhouse, he looks straight into the camera and says, "I see you." Maybe that's what he's seeing. And therefore, it's logical that Alexa Bliss's personality could change, potentially into something we've seen before. Maybe the Harley Quinn sort of happy, sort of fan favourite kind of Alexa Bliss. Maybe the goddess Alexa Bliss. That would make a lot of sense. She was very successful in both of these roles, so maybe she goes back to one of them. We could potentially see something brand new that we've never seen before from Alexa Bliss. That potentially could be where Alexa Bliss's inner Fiend comes from. And I like the idea. People forget Alexa Bliss is a multi-time women's champion. She was at one point the face of the women's division. She bucked the trend, and at a time when it was all about the horsewomen, she literally won the championship and was dominant doing so. Alexa Bliss could be being pushed straight back into that big main event scene once again. And I'd be all for it. I loved Alexa Bliss's runs. And to sort of move her away a bit from Nikki Cross and that whole weird gimmick with a cup of coffee, I'll be all fine with it. As long as Alexa Bliss is getting a push from it, I'm perfectly okay and on board. And I like the idea that we've potentially maybe explained the reason that Bray uses the mandible claw. It's a way for the Fiend to be inside of somebody, to literally rip at them. And the hurt glove maybe brings something to the surface. I know it's not realistic, but it's wrestling, and you gotta believe in the storyline to believe in the theory. And it's a logical explanation on how these people change, because deep down inside of them is that person. It also fits very perfectly with the old Life is a Circle theory video we did, where we was talking about the Fiend circle and Bray Wyatt circle and how things always come round again. It's a theory video that Bray Wyatt actually saw, acknowledged and applauded, so it's one that we think we got right. But what if it's not just Bray Wyatt's circle? What if everyone else's circle has to come round again? Therefore, it never ever ends. Forever, Seth Rollins' circle will go round. Forever, the Fiend circle will go round, which means eventually those two will clash again down the road eventually. Now, we need to take a look back at the swamp fight between Bray and Braun. This literally happened 2 weeks ago at Extreme Rules, and it was a really good cinematic fight. And it wasn't a match, it was a fight. And I liked it. Now, we have to look at what we actually saw here and sort of determine what could potentially happen from that. Now, we saw the Fiend emerge at the very end of the fight. We saw that Bray, cult leader Bray, tried to escape the swamp, but failed. And when he fell back into the water, moments later, the water turned red, it bubbled, and the Fiend emerged. Now, we can only therefore assume that Bray Wyatt, cult leader Bray anyway, died, and therefore the Fiend took over. Bray Wyatt is immortal. He knows that if he dies, the Fiend comes back. What's it matter? Life's a circle. So, we can only therefore assume, because Braun Strowman was in that water, Braun Strowman hasn't emerged back, that maybe Braun Strowman is dead, and we're going to see some kind of monster emerge out of Braun as well, because we know that, again, this week on Smackdown, Bray told us he went to the swamp, he looked for Braun, but Braun wasn't there. So, surely would you find a body, wouldn't you? So the logical explanation, therefore, is watching the Fiend emerge after Bray's failure and death would be, after Braun's failure and death, we get something new emerge out of Braun Strowman, which I think is a very risky thing for WWE to do. Braun is over with kids and the majority of their fan base. He is the current Universal Champion of the world, yet they want to maybe change him up. I'm all for it. I think a big monster heel on SmackDown is exactly what the WWE need right now. Now, the reason I think he attacked Alexa Bliss in the first place was simply the fact she's friends with Braun Strowman. I think Bray knows that Braun is out there somewhere and he wants to bring Braun back to get that Universal belt off of him. Well, the best way to anger a monster is target his best friend. It's something WWE have acknowledged as recently as April in the segment A Moment of Bliss with Braun Strowman. They made it clear to you then, at the start of the Bray and Braun rivalry, that Alexa and Braun are friends. So therefore, if you want to bring that monster home, target the one person he trusts in the world, the one person he'll come to the defense of, and that, for Braun Strowman, is his Abigail, Alexa Bliss. Now, Alexa herself is involved in quite an interesting story as well. Nikki Cross obviously shoved her down before the Fiend emerged, which obviously looks like the start of the split between Cross and Bliss, and I think that's fine. I'm glad. I think both these women deserve singles pushes, and hopefully Summerslam, maybe Payback the week after Summerslam, we're going to see these two actually collide. Now, I don't think Alexa therefore needs to be in any way a demonic character for that to happen. I think, if anything, I think she should be the victim. I think Nikki should maybe be the heel here, and I think Alexa should be the face. I think it's a strange way to do it. But again, it fits in with what we've seen from Bray with the whole Braun story. Everything so far has been mind games. And that's all that was. It's another extension of the mind games. But this time, the Fiend is back. These mind games are not just flashbacks. They're not just a walk down memory lane. The Fiend is targeting Braun Strowman's friends. I wouldn't be surprised if the Fiend brings out Braun's mother next week and mandible claws her as well. Now, going back some months, Bray actually showed this mask on Twitter. Now, this got us really thinking that this could be a mask for someone, and when we saw Braun in the rivalry picture with the Fiend, we assumed it may be Braun. I still think it's likely. I mean, this is an animated drawing of a mask, which would be what you draw to then get it made. So it probably wasn't even made then, but it probably is now, and it may be time for Braun to bear the boar mask. I think it's interesting. I think what we will definitely see is this coming Friday, we'll see Alexa Bliss's picture hung on the wall of the Firefly Funhouse, on the wall of friendship, the wall that is behind Bray during every Funhouse episode. And again, we have theorized in the past that maybe this is a way that the Fiend and Bray trap part of that person's spirit in a picture. It's an old mythical thing that people used to believe, that people, when you took your picture, it would capture part of your soul. Maybe that is the reason, and maybe that annoys Braun. Maybe this is what brings Braun back. Maybe Braun even himself goes to the Firefly Funhouse. But I do think we are building up to SummerSlam, where we will see the Fiend versus Braun Strowman. Whether that is Braun Strowman or a monster Braun Strowman with a new face mask, I've got no idea. But I do see that match being for the Universal title, especially now Bray's told us that's what he wants. And I, for one, am all for it. I think it's possible Alexa Bliss somehow gets involved. Maybe she causes some kind of distraction for Braun. Maybe the Fiend takes things too far and Alexa maybe throws in a towel or something. We did do a video, though, last Sunday, looking at the reason that Bray Wyatt has the Firefly Funhouse. And things did come to fruition for this, because Randy Orton on Raw challenged Drew McIntyre. Now, this wasn't something I was expecting to happen so quickly, but it literally did. The very start of Raw was Randy Orton saying he wants the WWE Championship. Now, we theorized in that video that if Bray went for the title after Orton declared he wanted the WWE title, then that would be a gateway for Bray Wyatt to get to Orton at Survivor Series. Now, that's exactly what happened. Orton started Raw declaring he wanted the WWE title. Bray started Smackdown declaring he wants the Universal title. I don't care if Bray wins the belt and then loses it again in the future. I'm just happy that he's using it as a tool to get what he wants. It instantly makes Bray Wyatt more dominant than the championship belt, and I really, really like that, because it's a cool twist on what a lot of people want to achieve. Now, in summary, I don't think Alexa Bliss will be in the Firefly Funhouse. Maybe she will for a cup of coffee. Maybe she's been abducted and she's going to be in there for that reason. But I do think we are going to see a turn of Bliss. I think we're going to see a U-turn and her career go in an upward spiral. And I think it's something we should be looking out for. You have to remember, this is the only interaction that Alexa Bliss has had with the Fiend. So if we see now Alexa Bliss become more successful and change her character, we know that the mandible claw theory, which is spoken about during this video, would be correct. Which is a fun thing to do, to see if we're right or wrong. But I do like this, and I think it's a testament again to the creativity of Bray Wyatt to use other people and the friends of Braun Strowman to make this story something more riveting than it already was. I do apologise again that this video was so long, but I do hope you enjoyed it. Give me a like if you made it all the way through to the end of the video. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Make sure you follow me over on Twitter and Instagram at CWrestlingUK, and of course share the video so your friends can find it. I'll see you as always next time. Peace!